Sit back, relax, and let's have a chapter chat. I'm your host, Jessica Foster, and today we are joined by author Angela Shupe. Hi there, Angela. How's it going?
It's good. Hello, Jessica. I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
Doing great. This is your debut novel, In the Light of the Sun. How does it feel to
Yes.
be a debut author?
It is wonderful. It's kind of a surreal experience, but it's been a very long road. So I am very, very grateful to be here. And again, it's very surreal. So yeah.
And this has actually been quite a journey because you started this many years ago, right?
That's correct. That is correct. Yeah, I've had this story kind of percolating inside I feel like I've carried it around since I was very young. I heard these stories that were told by my mom and my aunts, the stories inspired by their lives. And I didn't actually start writing it until about 2015 and then started, seeking publication for it. So started doing some research back in 2012, but not full time. But obviously it's 2025 now. So it's been a very long road. So I'm very excited to be here. Yeah.
And I know that everyone is going to enjoy this book. I know that I did. So let's give our listeners a little synopsis of In the Light of the Sun.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. In the Light of the Sun, it's the story of two sisters, the Grassi sisters, who are both aspiring sopranos. And the younger sister, Karamina, is in the Philippines with their family in Florida Blanca. And she is getting ready to pursue her dream of going to Italy and to voice train there. When unfortunately the Japanese bomb the US air bases near their home and everything changes for her. And she and her family are forced to flee. And they flee into the mountainous jungles there in Luzon, where they stay for the duration of the war. And Karamina really has to overcome her fear and a significant amount of loss, not just to survive, but also to protect her siblings. And at the same time, her older sister, Rosa, is in Italy finishing up her voice training at the Luigi Cherubini Conservatory. And she's getting ready to debut professionally in this very interesting world that is both opulent and oppressive under the hand of Mussolini and his henchmen, the black shirts, the world of opera there in Italy at that time. And when the Germans declare war on Italy and the Nazis march on the city, she's in Florence, everything changes for Rosa. And she begins to suspect that those closest to her are keeping secrets. And she begins to question also whether she herself should be fighting alongside the resistance against Mussolini and the Nazis. And before the war ends, she is faced with really the most difficult decision of her life, one that is a life and death decision that would potentially impact the one that she loves the most. So, and as I said, it is inspired by my mom and her sisters, their family story.
And so it's inspired by your mom and her sisters, but you had to do a lot of research. Historical fiction is a genre that I have grown to love, but I know there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes.
Yes, there definitely is, Jessica. Like as I said, I started researching back in 2012, but I wasn't doing it full time. Um, and my mom, unfortunately, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's many, many years ago. She has since passed, but she had it for 18 years. And as she was going through that experience, and I was helping her, I really felt this kind of, I don't know, I was compelled to know more about her story. Um, I knew what happened, some of what happened, but I really wanted to know more and I was curious. So I reached out to my aunts and started out interviewing them, asking them questions about their life during the war and growing up, and specifically about my mom. Um, but again, in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, man, this would just be such a beautiful story. And like you, I love historical fiction. I read, for the most part, all historical fiction. It's my favorite genre. And so I dove into research And it really, it's quite interesting. There's so much, and I did it really in two parts. I started out by researching the Philippines and the war there, the Japanese occupation, the Japanese military, and was really stunned, and in some ways very grieved by what I found there. Um, During my research. And then later, when I added the Rosa narrative to the book, I had already done a little bit of research on Italy for that, but I dove into research for Rosa's narrative, and again was really just surprised. I think one of the things that surprised me the most about both countries is just how complex the war was in both countries. I think it's easy to have a very simplistic view of you have the aggressors coming in and occupying, and they're the enemy, and then you have the country that is being occupied, and that is obviously, that is very true, and that is the case, but there's a lot. It's so very complex. History is really built upon what happened in the years before, and so there's just a lot. It's very, very complex, but I love research, so I could stay researching for a very long time, but I also love writing. So yeah, so it's good to get into the writing and dig into their stories. So
Of course, and I
yeah.
think those stories are so important. I've mentioned this on this podcast before. I think that I love historical fiction because I think it's important for society, because a lot of times history can get lost. And if we don't keep
Mhm.
that history alive, history can repeat itself. And I think by putting it in a historical fiction context, we add those emotions to the story, and it allows people to connect and maybe learn something that they have never learned in a history book.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you very much, Jessica. Growing up, one of the reasons I was compelled to do this was not just to honor my mom. I mean, that was really the main reason. I wanted to honor her and her family's story. But when I was growing up, it was very evident to me that people around us were not familiar with what happened in the Philippines. Um, and a lot of people, even now, as I'm going out and meeting people talking about the book, um, it's understandable because there's not a lot. I don't think there's been a lot out about it, but a lot of people don't even know that there was war in the Philippines, and it truly was so devastating and impactful for the Filipino people. Um, it's just so significant in their history, and in those people's lives living through that time, and it dramatically impacted my mom and her family. So yeah, and what you said about you know hoping to bring what happened during both aspects of the war in Italy and the Philippines out. I mean, there's the hope and the desire that if people are aware of what happened, then hopefully maybe it won't happen again.
And I know that it was important for you to get this finished into publication, especially after your mom's diagnosis. How does it feel to actually have this book out now?
It is, it's so gratifying to be able to have it out. You know, I I wish I wish that she could have been a part of it, that she could have read it. I had my aunts, sadly, they have all, that generation, they have all passed now. But in talking to them, interestingly, when I was interviewing my aunts, I was concerned that, you know, I was very aware of the fact, for someone who's I have not lived through a war, but I knew I did, I've spoken with different people who were war survivors, and, some people don't want to revisit, understandably, those memories. It's too traumatic, it's too difficult. Um, but I did have my aunts, in fact, had thanked me for um, kind of giving them the opportunity to, I guess, walk down, memory lane with their fond memories of their family. And I had I also have a godmother who also has since passed, who, like my mom and her sisters, grew up in the Philippines. She was there during the war, had a very similar story. She and her family fled their hometown as well when the Japanese invaded. And she read an early draft of the manuscript for me, which was originally just Karamina's perspective. And she also, I was stunned when she when she did this, and I was so moved that she thanked me as well, for really, I guess, putting into a story her memories. Like, she felt like she was able to again revisit these childhood memories, but in a way that helped her to remember them fondly. With the times with her family, not obviously not the trauma of the war, but the love she felt for her family. And so I feel like, I hope that people, if there are survivors still, I know there are some still, if they were to pick this up, I hope they would feel that it honors their memory. And that is truly, I mean, what my aunt, her name was Belen, my Aunt Belen, what she said to me, I think that was the highest compliment I could have been given, with
Oh,
the book.
yeah.
So, yeah.
This is your first novel that's been published, but this is not your first writing that's been published.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I did some freelance writing before, for several years actually. I did a lot of like personal essay writing, as well as I dove into some short stories and took some fiction workshops. Um, Really with kind of this book in the back of my mind, just trying to see if I could do fiction. And was very encouraged by the facilitators, the who were also writers. One of them in particular was a short story author, and he encouraged me to go ahead. And he had said, Angela, what is it that you really want to do? And I told him the story. He himself was actually a war survivor. He survived the war in Hungary, and he had said, you can do this. Go ahead. You need to get it down. And he actually said, you're not going to have peace unless you do this. So, and he even said, and neither is your family. So you really need to do this. So yeah, writing's really been a part of the jobs that I had leading up to doing freelance writing. I did communications work for a school district, and prior to that, I did some editorial work as well. I worked as an editor. So, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing like getting that pressure from someone, right?
Yeah. Yes. For him to say that to me, because he was the first short story workshop that I had registered for. And, you know, they vet your writing to accept you into the workshop. And he had done that. And he was so kind to continue to stay in contact with me after the workshop and kind of checked on me, how's it going? What are you doing? And sadly, he has passed also. He was in his 80s when I met him. And that was, I think, back in like 2010. His name was Lawrence Dorr. That was his Americanized name. His Hungarian name is János Shumjen. But he's just a wonderful writer, and just a wonderful man as well. So I'm very, very grateful to him for giving me that push, and encouragement. So,
Of course. And when you actually get to this point where you've been published, you can look back and you see every person that was put in your path that helps make this
mhm.
happen.
Yeah, yes, definitely. It's interesting. It's funny. I think it's easy to assume that, when you set out to do something and you have a goal, it's going to be a linear path, right? You just go from point A to point B. It should be somewhat linear, but eh, at least in my life, that's not the way things work. It's kind of a very jagged zigzag, line to get to where, I'm hoping to go, and fortunately the book has happened. But I'm so, so grateful for the people that, like you said, honestly, I feel like God put in my path. Like Janos, there, is a developmental editor that was kind enough to work with me. Actually, two different developmental editors, and both were wonderful. And the second one that worked with me, just I'm so indebted to her. She was a big champion for the story, and again, just different people. My editor right now at the publishing company, again, she's just a huge champion for the story and has been an advocate for, the book to come out, and really understood, I think, my vision for the story, and what I hoped would have, a broad appeal, because it is a global story, being set on two different continents. And I feel like there's so much in it, even though, if obviously war is something so unique and specific, but we all go through difficulties in our lives. And the fact that, the example that my mom and my aunts really set for me, and that has stayed with me and has been an encouragement to me, is that you can walk through some very significant difficulties and still live a very full life. You can have joy, and there is hope for that, and I'm so grateful for their example to me, all of the people that have been in my path. I know that to this point, and I know that will continue to happen. That's just, I feel like there is goodness in the world, and I'm very grateful for that. So,
I think so too. And I think that that's important to recognize also, because it's easy for us to point out everything that's wrong with the world and society, right? But if you
yes.
just take a moment and say, there really is goodness in this world.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is hard, because there is so much negativity. I feel like, and I know, it's just a part of living in 2025.
It is.
We have so much information, and information instantly at our fingertips, and um but there is so much goodness, and I feel like when you're able to, I was hoping to portray that in the book, that sometimes it's the little things, like, which may seem completely insignificant to somebody else on the outside, but as you're walking through some significant difficulty, um I don't know, it could be as simple, I don't want to sound Pollyanna-ish here when I say this, but it could be as simple as seeing a butterfly when you haven't seen a butterfly in, I live I live in Michigan, and today is actually warm and sunny, but usually during this time, and a couple weeks ago, it was probably, I think, with the wind chill, it was like 6 degrees.
Oh my
And it
goodness.
felt like 6 degrees outside, and it was gray and cloudy. And, and then I actually just went on a quick trip. And I was down in Florida, actually, and I saw a butterfly. I was, wow, oh my golly, because from the depths of winter, and here is this beautiful butterfly. I know that almost sounds silly, but I think when you're walking through difficulty, sometimes those very, very small things can bring joy, and if you keep your mind and your eyes open for them, um, I don't know, those small things can add up, and people who are kind, people who, a simple gesture of kindness, who, just smile and say hello, it's easy to walk past each other on a street and not really, kind of be in our own worlds, but sometimes just small acts of kindness can just mean so much, as you're walking
Exactly.
through something. So, yeah.
And I love that you visited Florida, because that's where I'm at, is in Florida. And
Oh, yes, yes.
2026 has started out very warm here in Florida, which is quite the departure
Oh,
from 2025, when we had an unprecedented snow here in the Florida Panhandle.
oh
So,
my,
yeah.
really? I did not know that you had snow there. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Well, it
Wow.
almost never happens, and it was a year ago now, and everyone's like, "Do you think we'll have snow again this year?" And we're like, "Well, that might have been like a once in a lifetime thing for us."
That's so amazing. That's so unique, Yeah. Wow.
It
I
really
can
was.
imagine.
We had a lot of joy from that for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I understand that. Actually, I have a lot of family that has moved south, because the winters, I think they're just tired of the winters, and so, which I understand. And one of my sister loves the snow. She absolutely loves the snow. So she was here when it was cold, and we had quite a bit of snow, and it did not bother her one bit. It was quite beautiful. I will say the snow it is quite beautiful. It's peaceful. I think it actually has kind of almost a silencing effect, when you're walking out it's beautiful when you're out in the I live not too far from a metro park with woods, and there's a
Oh,
chain of
wow.
lakes there. So it is really pretty. And so when there is, fresh snowfall and you're walking outside, it is very peaceful. So I do understand that. So
I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you've learned in this process. Releasing your first novel, I know that, there were a lot of twists and turns along the way. It was quite a process. So, if you had advice for people who maybe want to write a book one day, what have you learned? What advice could you give them?
yeah, I would say, um, first of all, I would say the same thing that Lawrence uh, Dorr said to me, which is if you have a story that is on your heart and it just does not let you go, get it down on the page. You need to write it. And you can't do anything until you have it down on the page. You need to get it down on the page. So do that, go ahead. And you really, in one sense, I will say you need to, look for people who have done this before. People, like I mentioned, going to a writer's workshop, a couple different ones. And that was so helpful to me, not only to learn craft, but to have the encouragement of other people walking alongside you and people who've gone before you. Because it is a long road to publication. If you're seeking to be traditionally published, and there is quite a bit of rejection, and that is fairly normal. That's a very common thing. And you need to have those people kind of in your corner to encourage you along the way. So I would say, go ahead and do it, persevere, get the writing down and seek out opportunities to grow. I feel like, obviously the book is published and I'm so grateful, but I feel like writing is something I'm going to continue learning, the craft of writing as I go, for as long as I write. So you can continue to improve. So I would say go ahead and get writing and seek out those opportunities because they will definitely benefit you.
That really is great advice. And are you already working on your next project?
So I am, I am doing research. I started doing research probably about, I don't know, maybe a year ago, a year and a half ago, but I wasn't able to dive into it because I was obviously working on edits with this book and kind of going in and out. The publication process itself, you do the edits, you hand it off, and you may have another revision come, and then there are copy edits. So in between those times, I was doing research. Um, I do have a story in mind. I have a little bit of it worked out. I have not started writing it yet. And I have quite a bit of research to do before I do that. So I'm really kind of itching to get back into that and to get writing again. So, and it will be again similar to this book, family inspired. It's going to be set back in time, however, which is one of the reasons why I'm there. There's quite a bit of research to do. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. I don't really want to say too much because hasn't come to be. So once I get more, I think further along that path, maybe I'll be able to share a little bit more about it. But I am excited about it. So yeah.
But right now, you're busy getting In the Light of the Sun out, letting people know that this book is out now. And it is a treat. I do encourage everyone to read it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you. And I have to say, I'm enjoying that. I actually last night I met with my very first book club, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun, and oh my goodness, these ladies were wonderful. So, and I'm looking forward to doing that more. I am open to meeting with book clubs virtually, or if they're close enough, geographically, being able to do that in person too. So, but yeah, I'm trying to take advantage of those opportunities as they come and seek them out. And I'm so grateful for you having me on. This is such a treat to get to talk to you, Jessica. Thank you.
Of course, of course. And book clubs, I encourage everyone, if you are not involved in a book club, get involved in a book club. Angela, I have to tell you, this whole podcast came about because I started a book club. 4 years ago,
Wow.
yeah, 4 years ago, I had a New Year's resolution to read more because I realized that I was just so busy in my life. I wasn't reading for fun anymore. I thought, you know what? Let's start a book club in the community for our viewers. And it was the Chapter Chat Book Club, and it became popular, and it's just grown and grown. It's grown into a book drive where we get books for kids in the community, and then now it's expanded to this podcast. So it just shows you the power of reading and how it helps bring communities together.
Yeah, that is such a beautiful story. I love that, Jessica. Oh my goodness. I love that. Yeah, I agree. I mean, what a wonderful thing to be able to do that and, bring the community together like that. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if people are listening and you've never joined a book club, I encourage you to join a book club because you're going to make friends. You're going to read things that maybe you wouldn't have picked up for yourself, too. I think that's another aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely getting to read something outside of maybe the genre that you normally read and being exposed to some really wonderful writing and wonderful stories, right? Yeah, I agree.
So, Angela, what message do you have to readers out there before we go today?
Just the idea that, again, like, if you are walking through a difficult time, um, there is hope. There is hope. And I just encourage people to look for the good. Obviously, all circumstances are not good, but there is good out there. And, you can have a full life. Regardless of the difficulties and the circumstances that you're going through. So I just encourage people to do that, to look for the good. So
I think that that is a wonderful message. And what I'm hearing from you is that your faith has helped you get through this journey as well.
yes, that is very true. That is very true, Jessica. Yeah, my mom was a woman of very strong faith, and she passed that down to me. And I will say that, my faith is something that is really a bedrock in my life. So, the idea that there is good, I know that to be true, because, I helped my mom through that time period when she was going through that. She had Alzheimer's for 18 years, and I helped her through that time. And, um, they're just significant difficulties sometimes in life. And my faith has carried me through that, so there really is hope and there is goodness. And I'm truly so grateful, honestly, to God, for that, because, in talking about the direction, how I mentioned, things, you'd think things would be somewhat linear, but they're not, at least in my experience. But I'm always so surprised, I think, when I see, oh, there's a door that opens here, and it's not something that I even knew was a possibility, or, that existed. And I'm so amazed and surprised and so grateful, So yeah, I mean, if you're walking through difficulty, there is hope. There is hope. So, and I am very, very grateful.
I've seen that in my own life. I was actually talking to my family not too long ago about how we could see how God has ordered our steps along the way to get us to where we are now.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because you look back and you can see that how God has worked. I feel very strongly that that is true. Yeah, I haven't shared this. I have a daughter. I have two kids, but I have a daughter who has special needs, and she is just wonderful, and she is a joy in my life. Um, there are challenges, obviously, in parenting. Just parenting, just
Yeah.
parenting alone is challenging sometimes, right? There are obviously challenges, but there are very unique challenges, to that journey, to being a parent of a child with special needs. And so when I say our family has experienced some difficulty, I'm thinking of those things. I'm thinking of helping my mom through that time, and helping my daughter and continuing to help her, but there is so much joy in the journey. And when I look back, that I think I do that quite a bit. Like when something comes up that is difficult, even, it could be in any area of life. It could be with work, whether it's personal, whether it's with family, whatever it is, it helps to look back, as you're saying, to look back and see, we were facing this back then, 5 years ago, 10 years
Right.
ago, whatever it is. And to say, oh, I see how God brought us through that. And I can see, people can account for it however they want, but I'm convinced, I know that it is God that brought us through that. There's, not a doubt in my mind that that is true. Because sometimes it's so completely, the situation seems so completely impossible. There's no other explanation, and sometimes it's almost funny. I'm just like, okay, all right. Wow. And I'm just very grateful, so yeah, it's helpful to do that, to look back. Yeah.
It is. And
Yeah.
Angela, I can relate to that as well. Many things in my life. I'm a cancer survivor. Went through infertility, but now have a beautiful daughter through adoption. And, you couldn't get through any of those things without your faith
Yes.
and without God. So I love being able to talk to you about that
Absolutely.
and to share
Oh.
this beautiful story. I know that you have made your family proud with this. So thank you for being vulnerable and talking us through this today. It was such a joy.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Jessica. This has been such a pleasure talking to you. I've truly, thank you. I'm very grateful. This has been lovely. Thank you.
Yes. And I hope you'll all enjoy In the Light of the Sun out now.
You've been listening to Chapter Chat. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy reading.